Thank you,
Thank you,
snowboarding.
snowboarding.
Snowboarding, grazie.
Hey friends, my name is Chris Cracknell. This is Thank You Snowboarding, the podcast that is all about UK snowboarding culture and history. If you are new to the sport or new to the podcast, having found it over the Olympics after watching the amazing performance of our UK snowboarders, then you are very welcome along. There's quite a back catalogue for you to go at, and you'll be very welcome to go and check those out. Season 1, a couple of years ago, we started doing this project, and we do this project with our friends at the Snowboard Asylum, who have been looking after snowboarders since the beginning. They've got more knowledge than you can shake a snowboard at. If you need anything for your snowboarding trip, your trip to the dry slope, your trip to a dome, go and see those guys and girls, and they will sort you out with what you need, not what your friend suggests you need. So I hope you're doing all right out there. Yeah, the Olympics just finished. I think Tim and Ed are riding a wave of popularity, sort of a bit of a cult status, seeing mad things online like Caitlin Moran writing a column about them in The Guardian. That is pretty mad, but it's really cool because it means that snowboarding is reaching a little bit further than our little world. It's out there for everyone to see, and hopefully there's going to be a nice upswing of people coming into the sport and hopefully finding it in the way that it's meant to be found. It's such a great thing, and if you listen to every guest when they tell me at the end of each episode what snowboarding means to them, it's kind of more than a sport. When you see it on the TV, it's a sport, it's a discipline, but snowboarding is more than a sport and a discipline. It's kind of lingers somewhere in between lifestyle, art form, sport, calling, whatever you will. But if you're new to the podcast, then you're very welcome along. And this week we are talking with one of the nicest people you could hope to meet, a guy called Marcus Chapman. Marcus was a pro snowboarder, certainly followed in the good long lines of people blagging a life out of snowboarding for a while. There were some stories that in this interview that I didn't realise or I'd sort of forgotten about. We talk about the infamous road gap above Val D'Isere, where he absolutely canes himself. It's got to be one of the worst slams I think I've ever seen. It is on our YouTube channel. In one of the movies, I will find out and tell you at the end where that is. But Marcus, in more recent years, is best known for his work with CALM, the campaign against living miserably. Due to good friend of the snowboard scene and one of the nicest people in the snowboard scene, a guy called Nelson Pratt, who sadly took his own life some years ago. And that inspired Marcus to get involved with CALM, raise money, do these bike rides where they raise thousands and thousands of pounds to try and get through to people who are not in a great way, and to try and offer them some support and to get them out of a hole. So this episode, I will have to give a trigger warning. We do talk about Nelson, we do talk about suicide, and we do talk about mental health, and there'll be some signposting at the end and some links in the show notes if it's something you are struggling with and you need some help. But let's not dwell on that completely. Marcus has got a very, very funny story about his snowboarding. He has certainly lived the life a bit, and he's genuinely one of the nicest people you could meet. So let's dive straight in. Marcus Chapman, let's go.
That week that I missed you in teen this year,
yeah,
as in the December, has been one of my most brilliant things for the last 5-6 years, and I missed it twice. And that's normally when I'm there with Jenny and Blakey and Stenty and just, some brilliant people.
So what sort of role are you involved in Jenny's camps? Or
no, not at all.
You're just there.
Not at all. I'm a bit of a sort of a weird hype man that comes out now and again, and she makes me jump off something and crash. And then they're like, oh, we're not going to go where he's gone. We'll go that way. And the same with I mean, it's a real treat for me to get to ride with all those guys again, you know, not just from being friendships, but riding. And the same with Stenty's group and Neil McNair's group over those years. I just tag on.
Yeah.
And James and I have to remember sometimes that we've got a group of 6 people behind us because we get carried away in our weird little competitive, brilliant sort of buzzing brains. But I mean, those guys just have the best time on the mountain with, you know, people like Neil, Jenny, Stenty, and same for me. You know, it's been absolutely brilliant the last few years and I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot, but reunite with John and Will and Scove and all, and those December week, that December sort of old man shred has been absolutely vital to my brain for the entire year.
Yeah, it is good. It is good to get some laps in before sort of Christmas and everything, just to kind of step out of just as Christmas is ramping up, just to switch that off and then go snowboarding for a week is definitely good for the brain, I think.
Yeah. Were you there this year, Chris? Or was it you didn't go this year?
Yeah, I was only there for a couple of nights. It was a bit of a whirlwind, really. Because why was that? It was just because I think I did 3 interviews. One of them was with Skier Jim, so I went over. So kind of I met up with him, then we went over to Val D'Isere. We did that over there. So kind of that felt like one evening that I missed anyway, and I was only up there for I think 2 or 3 evenings, and it sort of went by in a bit of a blur. Then I went over to Moran's place and had a bit more of a kind of bit more downtime over there,
whilst being a brilliant blur at the same time.
Yeah, I mean it was fantastic, but I think I'm kind of a little bit on the end of a bit of a burnout, and I was at the time, and I needed. I was like, if I stay up in team, I'm just going to drink, you know, like we'll be shredding, then après, and you know, trying to fit some interviews in, and it might be a bit too much if I stay up there for too long.
Try and do the whole thing. So, but that's what's really cool, isn't it? That sort of travelling about and having that excuse to see friends in that area. There's like Chris been there. There's lots of excuses to go to different spots. I think Chris's place we spent a bit of time there this summer. It's just, I mean, Chris is just such a special human anyway. He's one of my favourite people in the world and has 100%. Been since I was about flipping 12. You know, and I'd like to talk about that a bit because he was one of my main inspirations. And I keep reminding him of that, and he sort of and I forget it and he forgets it. But what he's built there in that place is just so special. And me and my little boy on the mountain bikes had one of my little boy's best ever days, and he'll remember it for the rest of his life, like mountain biking up in Mirabel. And Chris he is the absolute Pied Piper. You know, you open his boot and 14 bikes fall out, 10 sets of pads. You know, like, and it's just brilliant. You know, having known him. I mean, I've known him for I don't know over 30 years, and knowing him in Brighton and watching how that whole scenario turned out when he started sorting that place out, and you know, a lot of the materials came here first, and then he'd come and pick them up and take them back down there, and you know, he really has been. He's been wanting to do that and wanting to give people that experience for a long time, and it's so cool to see him actually doing it, and he loves it as much as he hoped he would. And he is the ultimate host at it. You know, he's almost too good now because he'll have hundreds of people there every day for the rest of his days. But you know, Chris, you know how stubborn Chris is. Well, everyone telling him not to do it just made him do it. Even
that's like
better.
Like a red rag to a bull, isn't it? Telling him not that he can't do something.
And even down to like the knocker on his door. You know, my 9-year-old who's never noticed a knocker in his life. He's like, "Oh, Chris, what's this?" Like, it's just amazing. But he was because he had a, and you'll remember this. He had a job for Crystal Holidays as like the snowboarding guru.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, way before I knew him, and I knew him as like the bobble-hatted, brilliant snowboarder that he was, like snowboarding for Burton, and the shots of him jumping over roads in Norway. And when I was a full nerd and keno, you know, coming from skateboarding, skiing, it was him, Stu Brass, Steve Bailey, that I was like, oh my God, look at the life they're having.
Yeah.
And then Chris got this job for Crystal Holidays. And I was like, a bit Ferris Bueller style. I was like, I reckon I could blag into that. And that's exactly what I did, was basically just follow, without even knowing Chris. I was like, I'm just going to be Chris. And like, obviously, I never ended up being quite as good a snowboarder as he was. But I followed his like Crystal Holidays blag and ended up getting a really good job in the out, or as good a job as I could have done.
Yeah, that's just I'd sort of forgotten
Ferris
about
Bueller.
that. The fact that you did something with Crystal Holidays.
Yeah, well, we ran. I got Nelson a job. You know, we'll get into how I met Nelson. So, but I got Nelson a job with him, and then eventually we convinced them again, Chris Moran style. Yeah, we could definitely run demo centres and do guiding for you across the Alps when none of us were qualified guides. It was completely illegal.
Yeah.
But Nitro were like, yeah, we'll send you. We were talking about this the other night. My mum drove 30 snowboards across the border, like Dover to Calais in a van, and then got stopped by customs coming back. And we just talked about this the other night. My mum was like, yeah, I was nearly arrested. But we got so we set up these Nitro demo centres in the Alps for 4 or 5, me, Nelson, John Paul Challoner, JP, Mary Gordon, JK, who was a real amazing sponsored surfer. We had, and we did it for 3, 4, 5 years. And all the Crystal staff, even the managers, were like, how the hell are you lot doing this job? Because all we had to do was guide punters 3 days a week or whatever. And we got lift pass, we got more money than, you know, someone shepherding hundreds of people from Chambéry Airport got. Yeah. And we kept the blag going. I had to go and do talks to reps in like Les Deux Alpes, and they'd like run me out of resort because they were like, well, you're full of shit. You basically blagged the job and we're actually having to work. So, but, you know, it was absolutely brilliant.
But I mean, at the time, Crystal Holidays, you know, they obviously wanted to get in on snowboarding, didn't they?
Yeah.
And get the snowboarders pound. So you offered them an easier solution than them having to figure it out on their own.
And really closely, a bit like John's story of setting up the Dragon Lodge in Tignes that year, and you were in Lazare or Paisy now. Were you in Paisy?
No, we were down in Borg.
Oh, you were in Borg, yeah, that's right. And like you, Crystal were like, oh, hang on, we want a piece of that. But instead of getting like a small chalet, they pulled me in and someone else into it. I said, right, we're going to rent this 300-person hotel in the Les Deux Alpes. I was like, whoa, like, you definitely don't need to do that. And it was like, you can see the sign was like flapping and falling off. And I was like, oh, you'll fill that, won't you? I was like, no, probably not.
No, and you don't want 300 snowboarders all together at the same time either. I mean, that's a recipe.
Half at the most, yeah. And luckily, some very sensible like Austrian manager was like, no, this is not a good idea. And thank goodness that didn't happen. But I mean, Nelson, all of that, they were some of our best, absolutely best years. And actually Nitro, who were my sponsor at the time, and Nelson's, it was really good for them because they had people riding their boards, you know, and they were in TSA at the time, and it was their best sort of time. But that was when I realised I obviously loved snowboarding and was just frothing, but I also really enjoyed teaching someone's a strong word, but like helping them, coaching them. You realise that you only have to give people a few simple tips, and you'll know this. People just, and same on Jenny's camps, and they absolutely love it. Being told by someone like Nelson who would just deliver it in sort of an Oscar Wilde, like just an Oscar Wilde, lovely prose type way, and he was just so kind with them. Yeah. And they came back year after year after year, and a lot of people ended up working for Crystal. Like I've got so many stories, you know. They ended up, so it was great. Yeah, the good times.
Did you actually start doing any kind of guiding or coaching qualifications or anything like that?
Nelson and I met. So the very reason why we met, and I'll try and get, you can cut me off at any part. I'll try and get this story short. We met in Tignes on the very first Basie Foundation course run by Becky Malthouse.
Oh, really?
So it was the first time they'd run like a foundation course that got you ready
Yeah.
for your Basie, I think it was 3 then qualification that took you at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Nelson and I were two proper nerdy, keen, frothing snowboarders who turned up, like first day of school, not knowing anyone, nervous, like anxious, all of that. And Becky was quite a serious but brilliant like teacher. And literally within a day, Nelson and I were being chased around by Becky, getting bollocked for trying to jump off everything, do little back scratcher methods. And, Nelson was already really good.
How old were you?
That was when we were 18. So we both had quite a wonky end to school. And again, they're different stories, but we've both been at sort of quite serious private schools, rugby schools, real, you must play rugby, must play cricket. Nelson was a very good hockey player, very good rugby player. I was really good at sports. So I'd gone there to play lots of sport.
So were you at the same school as Nelson?
No, but very similar schools,
similar
backgrounds. And skateboarding, probably like for you and millions of us, it was a real release. So both of us had skateboarded as a release from wearing pristine cricket whites all the time and stuff like that. And Nelson was exactly the same. And snowboarding was our escape. And both of us, and this sounds a bit cheesy to say, but within a day, we were like brothers from another mother, inseparable. And Becky just spent the whole time bollocking us and telling us off, but also being like, she's still one of my sort of inspirations of why I continued it. And long story short, we did that foundation course. It was the first one. We all rode around with our arms out like this, Basie style. You will have seen it, like Becky, like little ducks or whatever you want to call it. Pingu, yeah. But she taught us to carve, amazingly. I'm not saying, but she taught us the proper, because Neil McNabb and her had written that.
Yeah.
Had written that, and Neil ended up riding a lot with Neil as well. But we passed at the end of that season to be instructors. Right. And that gave us that bit of gentle clout with Crystal that we were all Basie, because Mari, who I got to do, all of us were on that foundation course and Basie course together and did it. So it wasn't legal in France, but we had something that gave us that.
Yeah.
Gave us that sort of credibility.
And that was, I guess that was when, because I always associated you with teen.
Yeah.
I guess I still do. Would have that been your sort of first time there?
Yeah, and that gave me a real pang when John Bassett said that in his interview the other day, that we were, and I felt very honoured that John said that we were one of the originals there, and I think Nelson and I were. Yeah, I mean, there was a real you had the people the guys coming up from Borg, and there was some really good French riders there, but we were the first sort of British riders in team, along with John Bassett and that crew, the Dragon crew. I don't know when Will first came to teen. I think he was in Val, wasn't he, for quite a bit?
So before. Will did a couple of seasons in Val. He did at least one season in Borg with Juliet.
Yeah.
Then they sort of went and travelled a little bit. So it must have been around 2001, 2002, I'm guessing.
Because I think ours was late 90s. And I mean, this is a bit of history, but because I got the job with Crystal, but I'd known already I had a job with Crystal, and it was purely, we were in resort in November because mum and dad were like, right, if you're not going to go to uni or do very well at school, you've got to do something. You've got to qualify at something. Because I just want to snowboard, and I was very lucky to even be in that entitled situation. And I realised it is an entitled situation, and I don't shy away from that. But they took me out. They said, right, you've got to get a job. So team was open. We went out to team.
Yeah.
And my dad was desperate for a poo, and there was nowhere open in the whole of Teen, apart from this one hotel, the Hotel Curling.
Yeah.
My dad I only know 3 people have the same affliction, that when they need a poo, they have to go immediately. It's me, James Tenterford, and my dad. And my dad, and there's loads of stories about that, but my dad ran across the square and ran into the Hotel Curling, And he was like, please, please. And there was some British people, and they let him in, and he did the deuce, and he came out, and he realised they were doing the hotel up, and they said, can like, who are you? He's like, oh, we're doing the hotel up for Crystal Holidays. We've got to get it ready. And like, well, can my son have a job? And he literally came and dragged me off the street and pulled me in.
No way.
I said, oh, yeah, we'll give you a job. I ended up being a night porter and a dishwasher for that first season.
Yeah.
And we went and looked at some places because it didn't come with accommodation at the time. And we went and we found an apartment for 11,000 quid for 16,000 euros. And my dad said, right, that's your first year at uni. If we get that, you can pay that off with your salary because you had like a bit of a living allowance. So we paid. Yeah. So me and Nelson and one other lived in a 16 square meter flat that became pretty famous, called The Cave, that Ryan did seasons in, Scove did seasons in, pretty much anyone who went through teen.
Yeah.
And the walls became furry. It smelt like a Glastonbury tent. My mum wouldn't come inside it. She'd hand stuff in from outside. And long story short, yeah, that Nelson lived in it right from that first season, and we paid it off. And we had it, and Nelson lived in it, and Scove lived in it for years and years and years after that.
Did you know much about the British scene at the time when you started out in teen? Did you know, did you see any of the magazines or Dry Slope or any of that stuff?
Yeah, I think Nelson not quite as much, but I think I'd always been like the story about Chris Moran. And it's funny watching my son now, 9, getting into skateboarding. He wants to know the tricks and the people and the names, and I was a real nerd like that. I suppose a bit of a wannabe. Like I wanted to be, like I wanted their life that they had. I was like, they look like, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I really wanted to be how they were. I wanted a bit of that life.
But I mean, it's an intoxicating vision, isn't it? It's like they get to go snowboarding, you can party when you want, you travel around, you get free kit. Who doesn't fancy a piece of that?
And it was a bit easier than skateboarding because I was an all right skateboarder, but I was like, I reckon I could be a better snowboarder than I could skate because, also a bit of the pain and what have you. So, yeah, I did. I did. I ingested as much of it as I could. So I think I probably knew who Becky was. I think I did actually because I remember trying to just chat to her too much and almost sort of,
fanning out.
A bit of a pain in the ass. Just shut up and do a turn and stop. And I remember I went to the Montfort Glacier, the Mountain High Verbier camp when I was about 14, when Jamie Lynn
was there and he knocked himself out.
That, actually, to answer your question, I think that's when I first was like, there is a scene here and there's some very cool, brilliant people.
Yeah.
Matt Donoghue and Morrow Ryder, Jamie Lynn was there. We used to follow Frank Screm down.
Oh, man.
When his stance, I'm making hands like you're filming this, but making his stance was tiny.
Yeah.
And he could carve watching Lewis Hamilton go around the corner. It was and we used to follow him down from the top, trying to keep. I was like, how is that dude? I didn't know who he was, but how is he even right? And then he'd do a 900 spin. And he was just, David Vincent, Frank Screm, Jamie Lynn were on that week.
Yeah.
And we'd just gone out as full school punters, me and a friend, and we met someone else. I don't think we knew much about the scene then, but honestly, watching Jamie Lynn do methods and things over, then a really big jump.
Yeah.
And it was the summer, so it was a real buzz. That's when I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I met Mel Leando, and I think I vaguely knew who Mel Leando was. And I made the stupid comment of she was talking about driving out and so she must have been 17, 18, 19. And I was 15, 14. I was like, oh yeah, I bet the drive out's really hard. I'd really like to drive out. And oh yeah, what? And she just completely shut. She was like, you look like you couldn't drive for 10 years. You look like, she just completely shut me down. And I was blatantly trying to flirt and chat to her. And she was just like, you look like you've just been on a Cub Scout trip, not you ain't driving for another 10 years. And she fully put me in a place. And it's funny now because obviously I got to know Mel really well, and I still tell her about that she like fully just shut me off. But yeah, that was long answer. But the scene, that's probably when I became really intoxicated with it. And watching the Covent Garden comp, I happened to be there by mistake, and I watched that.
How were you there by mistake?
I honestly don't know. I think we were in London. I think we were in. Maybe I'd heard that it was on, and my parents, but I ended up in Covent Garden in that throng.
Yeah.
Watching people. I don't know. Were you there? Did you watch?
I was there, yeah. Very much there. Yeah. I mean, it was wild, wasn't it? Because it's like Covent Garden. How do you get away with putting something on in Covent Garden? Like, that wouldn't happen now.
Yeah. And the money to do it now as well. Like that location.
And to have, who was there? Like Terrier, Daniel Frank.
It was pretty
Sean
much
Palmer, Brian Iguchi, Jamie Lynn,
wow,
Danny Wheeler, and Ross Ward.
Yeah, well, because there were two, and did any of the other British riders ride that?
I don't know. I don't know if Bailey did.
Yeah, I think Steve might have done. Maybe Chris might have done. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, my outstanding memory from that is the first time that I heard of Giles Peterson.
Right, was it music?
Because he was DJing, and I remember somebody like name checked him on the mic, and that stuck with me as well.
Wow!
Now that I'm sort of in that world.
Yeah.
But I mean that whole. I mean, that's kind of how big snowboarding was, but also how small it was at the time as well.
Yeah, and I suppose how cool it was that someone talked them into putting scaffolding up in Covent Garden and doing that.
Yeah.
But I was chatting to Matt Barr about the stunt they did for peak performance, wasn't it? Skiing in. I was like, you will change some kid's life that they will, having not really seen it, see it, and then go and force their parents to do it, which is kind of what I did, I think.
But you sort of hope so, don't you?
Yeah.
And you hope it's presented in a way, because there was that water skim thing. I when I looked at it, although I know it's sort of PR, so it has to kind of stand out. And obviously there's no hills in London. So unless you build a kicker somewhere, like how do you represent it in a good way? Like, I don't know if you remember the Red Bull Air and Water.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a kind of let's be honest, that was a shit idea.
Yeah.
I think, because people just throwing themselves into water, it doesn't make, I don't know that it made and I don't know that it made snowboarding look good.
No, yeah.
So there's kind of, it doesn't want to look like a novelty thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're right. Some kid might just see that and go, oh, that looks really cool. And that might be enough to push them into getting into it.
I thought the pond skim they built was just big enough, that they could actually do it and achieve it.
Yeah.
And just big enough that they could pull it off, but also big enough that it worked and people actually did do some impressive things.
Yeah, I'd like to have been there and seen it, really. I've only sort of seen it from afar.
And they got, I sent Matt, he got the Carlsberg of days to do it. It was like slightly sort of, bluebird, but the light was amazing and like everyone was buzzing and so. But skip forward to, I rode Bordex once or twice thinking that this had been the coolest thing to ride and I really wanted to ride it. And it was the most frightening thing I've ever done.
I bet it was.
And I rode the worst I've ever ridden. And I wish I had ridden dry sloping a bit more, because when I took off jumps, I sort of carved off a bit because of always riding snow and being a skier for years when I was little or whatever. And you were just taking off a strip of like dirty snow and you'd have like Eero Ettila behind you, jumping up and down on the scaffolding, and the whole thing was moving. It'd be like, like, oh, I've got to jump. Like there was no time to sit up and I just ate proverbial shit for a lot of it, and found it really hard to do any. And I always really respected any rider that could ride that well. And I know the big air jumps now that are built are way better, but back then it was a pretty narrow takeoff.
Yeah, I bet it was
hard to get to. I had some whopping slams and basically left feeling really quite. Oh, hang on a minute, I think I'm actually pretty rubbish. Had to go away and train quietly and get better.
But it's a shame that those sort of things don't really happen.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly in London or whatever, because, when Boardex was on, there's something about seeing it, obviously you can watch anything by anyone on your phone.
Yeah.
But actually seeing someone put themselves through what is quite a gnarly situation, and if they can make it look good and land something decent.
Yeah.
That is like the physicality of it. You can kind of
Totally.
feel it more, don't you, if you can see it in real life. And then there's obviously having it in a crowd with some music and showing the culture and everything. That's going to turn more people onto snowboarding than people seeing it on their phones.
100%. Like you said there, it's really visceral, like the noise of the rails, the slams. Unfortunately, people liked at that point probably seeing slams more than a 720 being landed perfectly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think I'll probably get my numbers wildly wrong, but I think you were talking like 20,000 people over those weekends would come.
Yeah.
I mean, someone will shoot me down with that number, but it was a real home for British snowboarding, but also the British snowboarders to pitch themselves against some of the Euro and world's best, but also just for everyday Joe public to witness it and see it. And that was a really when it was at Battersea, it was quite a cool, central, easy location for people to get to.
Yeah, I mean, in my memory, it was autumn, so there's beautiful colours.
Got you buzzing.
The whole thing about it really, really worked. And and then there's that kind of, the whole culture and the scene getting together as well. Like everyone would be there. In some capacity.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think there's something in that as well. There's not as many opportunities for people to get together now as well.
Well, no, and we'll talk about that, but that's where I feel quite warm inside, that's what people told me that Nelson's event ended up being, that because there wasn't Boardexes and there wasn't those like big gatherings where all of us lot could get together, that actually Nelson's, even though people had to wear Lycra and actually do a bit of work on a bike or not, totally up to them, but mate, Nelson's his cycling event in his honor ran for 10 years, and it was obvious how much they missed things like Boardex and those events where genuinely people could get to it. It was affordable, it was at the right time, and I wasn't aware, that's not why we did Nelson's, but I was aware that in the end that became very powerful for people, just like you said, of like an excuse for all of us to get together. But it, from a riding sense, I still wake up sometimes in cold sweats that someone's going to make me go and ride that again. I'll never forget the scaffolding moving at the top as well, because everyone would like jump up and down. And I was like, Mum, like the scaffolding's like swaying. Oh.
Yeah, I saw, obviously they're building all the stuff for Livigno at the moment.
Yeah. Oh,
and I've seen clips of the build. Must be the big air jump, so it's down in the town, and they've, obviously they've piled loads of snow up, but there is a scaffolding running, and it looks fucking terrible. Like, I mean, I've worked on building sites and been up scaffolding. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not that comfortable on scaffolding at the best of times.
Oh God!
And then imagine being like, not dissing any scaffolders, but. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what qualifications you need to become a scaffolder. Do you know what I mean?
They ain't come out of Cambridge Uni, have they, with a PhD? No, and never fight a scaffolder. In fact, never even question a scaffolder, even vaguely. If he wants to put scaffolding up 4 weeks early at 4 a.m., you fill your boots. We watched. My son and I watched the Danny Way Jumping the China Wall documentary again the other day, because I was like, you should watch this, and he became transfixed by it. The scaffolding in that is something to behold. Like, it is beyond, and they get all these, obviously the Chinese, to build it. Watch it again, because
is that what's that on? Just on YouTube?
Yeah, it's free. Okay. It's on Netflix or one of them, Amazon maybe. And then Danny Way is like, he's a bit like Gumby, the famous snowboard. Like, it's got to be bigger, so they make it even bigger, and it's moving, and it's just like he breaks it. He jumps it, doesn't he, eventually with a broken ankle because he has to, but it's just insanity, the whole thing. But
because he has to.
But you're totally right. He breaks his ankle on his first go because he made it too big, and he lands on the flat, and then he takes so many painkillers and then does it the next day. But all of those things, like you said, the marvel of building them. But yeah.
Where have we got to?
Well, it's me. I can go off on a topic and talk for a while.
No, well, let's get back to you. Let's not talk about big air jumps anymore.
Yeah.
So, kind of, what was your trajectory? Because you were sort of doing stuff for Crystal, but you were sponsored, and I think kind of it was around. I think where like your career sort of enters in the point where I was just down in Borg running the chalet and not paying much attention to what else was going on. So I don't really know, like, what happened, like what you got up to.
You mean after riding or sort of during?
Well, no, during riding.
Well, I think I was both really lucky and a bit like Chris Moran, but I'd say Chris had more talent and luck, and I was very persuasive in the sense of I knew I wanted a life as in similar to Chris or someone like that who had both maybe a bit of backup, someone like Crystal, but some sponsors and traveling a bit and what have you. And so Becky Malthouse sponsored me and Nelson after that first year for Nitro, like just, flowing kit.
Yeah.
But we had everything because they had Tignes, they had, so actually Nelson we'd turn up at the factory and, he'd fall over because the factory just had bags and stuff. So we were supported by Nitro and Tignes, and I think they had not level gloves, but anyway, to start with. And then I ended up skipping forward a bit to working with Neil McNabb, coaching on his community camps in Le Deux Alpes. I think at the end of one of those first or second seasons. And I think it was there, Neil had Dan Milner shooting for him and doing stuff, and Dan was there. And Dan externally was quite a sort of scary, grisly bloke, as in, like, if you did a shit turn, he said, "Oh, that was shit, do it again," or whatever. But me and Nelson, got on really well with him, and we ended up shooting. And he shot me a contender doing a pond skim, a water skim, across one of the Deux Alpes frozen bits. And then I think the next year we did a really big one with Bud Gallimore in the boat, and Orlando, I think, was there. Maybe Hamish McKnight fell in it. But the point of the dit is that I just got on really well with Dan, and Dan had like a select few that he got on that he liked traveling with, like Stenty, Scott Nixon, Johnny Barr. And I knew that I was never going to be a Nelson or a Danny Wheeler or someone who was really good at like switch 720. Like Nelson, if he pictured a trick in his head, he'd picture it, 10 goes at it, he'd do it. And that's all he wanted to do was freestyle. I was much more, really enjoyed being in the mountains, the free ride bit, but I liked being able to mix some of it, like be just about good enough at a rail, a jump. But Dan liked the fact that I was up for jumping off cliffs and doing weird things and just up for giving stuff a go. So
was it you that had a go at the
road gap?
The road gap. Let's talk about that, because I can find the clip of that as well and put it on.
Do you want me to talk about that now? That still makes
let's get into that. Yeah.
So exactly that and it made me chuckle because you put up the sequel, didn't you? The film, the sequel on your channel, and I watched it, and I haven't seen it, honestly. This is no fib. I haven't seen it for 15 years or something. And there's a really wanky, cheesy shot of me in my turquoise blue Audi TT that I'd bought left-hand drive on in France. So I bought it somewhere. And I really like cars and driving. Dan really likes his car. So we drove on one of the board tests all up the passes. Yeah. Basically, it was an excuse for two wallies to go and joy boy around in this hairdresser's turquoise TT, and we found that road right up on the Col de Liseran, I think, right above Val D'Isere.
Yeah.
We found that like two big snowbanks, and I was like, "Oh, we could definitely jump this." So we got Gumby involved, Tim Ward involved, obviously Dan, and we spent a whole frigging day building the run-in, building this jump, but it was more of like not a step up, but like you're hoping to go up and just sort of make it onto the, like
Sure.
it wasn't one height was really high, one was low.
Yeah.
Gumby spent all day, and like if Gumby built something, you knew it was going to be big enough. Fuck, it's going to be big. Like and you know, Gumby was an incredible rider, but he was known for overshooting things by a mile.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we built it all day, and then so the plan to come back the next day. So we came back the next day. We turned out that Gumby being up all night was on the piss. Like, so he turned up really hungover and he couldn't do any building or anything. It had rained, so it sort of like got slower and sunk a bit. Tim Warwood Gumby was like, I'm not fuck. He was going nowhere near it. So me and Tim like spent ages walking up. Tim went to drop it. Tim was like, I'm going to jump it with a bus or something underneath it. So he waited for a massive, great whopping bus to come. Like we waited ages at the top, and I was already papping myself. And just it was such a fast run-in. It was so fast you're out of control, and you can't really tell that from the video. And just as Tim's about to launch off and take off, he goes out of control and like veers off, and he would have just gone straight, probably through the bus, through the window. So I was like, well, shit, I've got to give it a go. And the running was so fast and so out of control that I couldn't have pulled out really without just going crashing off the side. So I just went into like a half backflip off it, completely out of control, hit the wall really hard because the jump just wasn't high enough and it was low. It knocked the wind out of me so hard, and you can't really tell this to me, I passed out almost immediately.
Shit.
I fell back about 15 foot onto the road. Dan's running along the top, and Gumby, no joke, was shouting, "Fuck, he's dead, he's dead!" Because my legs were fitting because I was passing out.
Yeah.
And I was like, my board was flapping, and Gumby's you can hear the one of that extra bit was like, "Fuck, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead." And I thought Gumby was going to start giving me mouth to mouth or something, which would have been
no one needs that.
But Dan made more money out of that shot that year than anything else. But I had like a popped rib on my sternum. Like my mum had to pick me up from Liverpool Airport, lying on the roundabout. I couldn't move. Like the swelling just got more and more, and it knocked me for six for a while, that jump.
Not surprised.
But it made it into the sequel.
Wasn't your TT underneath it as well?
Oh yeah, total Wazzock, yeah. Like if I wasn't going to do little Wazzock, I did full Wazzock. Definitely.
I mean, so for the listener, it'll either be on our Instagram or we'll clip it up on the YouTube. But I mean, it's hard to watch when you hit the ground. It's like you're hitting the ground like a sack of shit. Yeah,
and I don't think. Again, this isn't me trying to big it up, but you cannot tell from the video. Actually, it's a good 15 odd, maybe even 15, 20 feet fall back, and there's no like sliding down and then plop. Like but it was more the impact, I think, of whacking the wall at probably 40, 50 mile an hour. I actually don't know. Maybe that's grandiose, but that impact just knocked me out from just the wind, just immediately. And it took me a bit to get back from that. But I think, I mean, I think Dan and I did, and we became really close friends, Dan, because we traveled a lot. But I've always, and still do, I like going really fast, and I like jumping off. I like working things out, and that's why I always really like cliffs, because I always liked jumping off bridges when I was little and all of that growing up in the Lake District. I always thought in my head I had a really good eye for being, I mean, I got it wildly wrong that day, but an eye for jumping off stuff. And that was Dan. Like, he just liked people who could look at the mountain and go, yeah, I reckon that rock's doable. Or, and Stenty's the absolute wizard. James Stenterford is the absolute wizard of that still, off little rocks and seeing stuff that you don't even see. And I always loved that as well. Now Nelson was a much better rider than me, but when we were free riding, I was better in that sense of being able to spot things and like, oh yeah, that's doable. And I mean, I've definitely got it wrong, but yeah. plenty.
And was that a precursor to kind of you not pursuing the idea of being a pro snowboarder?
I mean, at that point, I was being paid. I was being paid by 55 DSL, so the diesel.
Nice.
Probably me jumping off that was almost the end, like me sort of tailing off a bit. I think from the sense of, because I was being paid a bit by Nitro and Dakar, and I was being paid a bit by 55 DSL. If you remember, they were like massive for a bit. As in,
they sponsored that big comp in Norway, that road gap that like Terrier and Jamie Lynn, and then John Cardiel was doing those McTwists on the vert ramp in a blizzard with no pads. That was 55 Diesel, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was his son. It was Diesel's son who was, I think, the founder of Diesel, who was given the 50 and just said, right, you do whatever you think's cool with it. And I think, was it Lucas Hoffman, one of the Nitro riders?
Right.
They had a really good team, and there was only a couple of us in Britain who rode for it, and we got so many amazing. A lot of the clothes had like big slash, like they were pretty bad, some of them, but great as well, as in like some bits. But that they paid me, so that was I think that was probably the road gap was probably towards the end of having had 3 or 4, 5, 6 seasons traveling with Dan and doing all right with Dan, as in like just magazine stuff, the sequel film, but being paid enough and doing still a bit of work with Crystal.
I mean, Dan was Dan the like photo editor at Snowboard UK as well. So obviously he's going to use his own shots as much as possible. So
100%, yeah. And I ended up skipping forward a bit in the line. I ended up being editor of Snowboard UK with Dan for 2 years or 3 years. So I ended up working with Dan.
Yeah.
Became even more scary because then when I was late for deadline, Dan would really bollock me.
How did you get that gig?
Really good story. Another bit of a sort of Ferris Bueller blag, but I was in Australia for a year and I ended up working for the Snowboarding magazine in Australia randomly with a guy called Richard Hegarty, who ended up managing. He does Style Wars in Australia, a massive event out in Australia, brilliant one. He was editor of he was editor of Method Mag, but he was a bit of a genius editor in Australia. I got a job with him, just helping him out as a deputy. And because Tom Copsey was leaving, I think, to go to Onboard magazine, Tom knew I was doing that job and he thought I could vaguely do it. And he said, "Do you want the job? It's yours if you want it." I was like, "Oh, yeah." And so we moved to Swanage in Dorset, well, Melly and I, my partner, and did the job. And I loved it, but it was full on. I mean, I actually had to work. I actually had to like do something and
fucking work. Put a magazine together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
not buying that.
It's not scaffolding, is it? It's not
scaffolding.
No.
You probably, because my brother was assistant editor at Snowboard UK for a winter as well, I think.
Right. Okay. Was that
you
what
must have
Dave,
just missed him?
Was that Dave Cracknell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He upset people. Us Cracknells are quite good at that.
I mean, surprising, but I mean, I had some very funny ride missions with your brother. One of my first actually in Saas-Fee. Good memories. But yeah, so he. I mean, again, I was just really lucky. Tom Copsey literally said, and it was with Carl. I'd done a bit of work with Carl Doherty.
Carl Doherty, what a legend!
What a lovely dude he was.
Yeah,
and he sort of really friendly, almost Jedi-like, sort of molded me and warned me without warning me off.
Yeah.
As in, he said, because we did it with quite a, and I'm going to be polite here, quite a tricky publisher.
Yeah.
Who ended up kind of just folding them. Like lots of people have lots of stories about him, but you had to sort of careful how you were with him. And Carl Doherty and Tom Copsey told me how to manage that relationship, to sound a bit businessy, but yeah.
I mean, that was a crazy time though, wasn't it? Because there was White Lines, I think Document was rolling by then.
Yeah.
And Snowboard UK, and obviously Snowboard UK being the longest running title, but had kind of passed through a couple of hands, hadn't it, by the time you got to it?
Yeah, and you were probably going to say politely a couple of different standards, as in
Yeah,
it's up and down, up both from design, photo selection, edit. Tom Copsey did a really good job, I think, from me looking at it as a snowboarder. It was still the biggest selling, I think, whether
yeah,
I'm wrong with that, and it had still had Burton as the lead. It still had good ads, and I
yeah,
think he thought because I was a snowboarder and I was vaguely, I could do a shifty, I was vaguely credible to come in and do that. But and without being arrogant, I think we ran it, and we ran it with the most, the same pages, or if not more than
yeah,
Tom and Oates, which was, how you gauged whether a magazine was doing well, didn't it? Because the ads, I think, meant how many pages you could afford to print.
yeah,
So, and I ran, you will have been on that. I ran board tests with him. That's when I did the road gap, was when I was on a Snowboard UK board test. I was supposed to be
yeah.
running it, not gidding around with Dan in a TT. The best times ever. And you've talked about it in other podcasts, those board tests and everyone together,
Yeah.
everyone taking the mickey out of each other and playing football were the best times ever.
Well, again, another excuse to kind of get together with everybody. Sort of at the time, everyone would go away and be seasoning wherever, and you might see people. And obviously, the better riders are going on trips and having all these adventures, but everyone's kind of out there doing it. And then that was like one of those excuses that everyone came together and then could share all these stories and like hang out together and do some snowboarding.
And I suppose me now as an older bearded dude, those times were really, really special. And the times for like us little clique in teen, the Val D'Isere crew, the board crew, the Le Desal, whoever, and the guys, because you remember at that time, like Tim Ord, Gendel, all did seasons
Yeah, all in America.
or Whistler,
Yeah,
Scott McMorris, and there was Kenty, all these people with this mystique of like, I
yeah.
mean, Kenty still had mystique.
He's
He'd still
got
come up
plenty of
on his
mystique
own,
about
and
him.
he'd hike up about 400 meters higher and go bigger than everyone else. But we'll talk about Kenty in a bit because I got to know him really well, and I think he's a brilliant human. But yeah, all those cliques, all those clans would come together, and we'd all be playing football together or like in the bar, and it was really special. And I suppose looking back, well, actually, it's why I miss Nelson so much now, his event, as in just for that reason, because it brings every crew together.
Yeah,
But back then, I'd pay, if I had £1,000,000, I'd pay £1,000,000 to go and run that, or be part of a board test again, because
yeah,
the riding actually was just a sideline to everything. Like the riding was fun. It was people messing about because the kickers were often wonky, or you'd carve off a kicker and you'd just crash because it was soft. So it just was fun, and everyone was hanging out together. Yeah. And like you said, it was the real how special our community was, and I felt really proud to be part of that. Nice to be part of it.
yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, it still is. I think it is still quite a special community. There's not.
Yeah.
I wonder if other countries feel the same about their communities as we do about ours, just because probably most other communities are either more spread out or weren't forced to kind of down the DIY route so much because we were all on, dry, or just making do with what we had to go snowboarding. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I wonder if if you've got the whole Alps there, I wonder if France has the same feeling about their community. I'd wonder if they do.
Yeah, it's a really good. I mean, it's a really good point, and I think, and I've listened to other people say it on your podcast, but what you've done is definitely sort of, or what this is doing is definitely bringing some of that back up and making us all realise how important it is.
I hope so.
Not just from other events, but just listening to stuff, old stories. And I think everyone's like old enough now that actually they're really open to say how much that is important and how much they value it, and just being a bit deeper with that as well, and realising that.
Well, I think when kind of, for that period, obviously there's people doing it now and they're having their period, but like for the period we're talking about, one could assume that is how everything is. That is how the world works, and it's only until you sort of then go out and do other things and realise Actually, it's not. There's not been any, like even the community, you know, like the music communities I move in and stuff. Like, it's pretty cool, but it's not. It hasn't got that same. It hasn't got that same thing about it, and I don't think it's just an age thing. I think it is the nucleus of something exciting happening that was all done by the people in it, not.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't much external pressure for it to be a certain thing. It was the thing that it was because of the people that were doing it at the time.
Yeah, it's very true. As in, it forges its own path rather than moving down a certain path. Yeah, but I saw that a bit from watching. Like my little boy, it's the only sport I haven't put. I'm quite pushy with sport because I coach it and do it. But skateboarding is the only sport I haven't pushed my 9-year-old into. And actually, my Affy, my girl as well, has had a go at it. And so he really wants to learn at the minute, and he really wants to go to a skate park. So I took him to LS10 in Leeds at the weekend. And I was like, you know, this is really going to hurt. It's his first session properly in a park. Like, he's pushed around and done ollies on the carpet and kept the neighbours up and all that, like I'm sure you did and I did for flipping hours, tic-tacking in the house. But because skateboarding hurts and snowboarding hurts, and because you get such a buzz from it, your mates, but also the people around you, like in the skate park, like strangers were picking Sonny up and his mate Edward up, who's 9 as well. Yeah. Who was crashing a bit harder than Sonny because he charges at things. You know, I wasn't having to do it. Other people were picking them up, checking they're all right, having a laugh with it, but also really. And I think snowboarding and skate, you know, there's a competitiveness, there's the slamming, but then but everyone's looking out for each other as well, and it forges really strong bonds, I think, doesn't it? For loads and loads of different reasons. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is that it's nice to see, like in a skate park, that those values haven't disappeared. Scooters and things, like, definitely it's changed because it's more flipping crazy and erratic, and you have to. I'm a bit like a grumpy, like, oh, don't drop in yet, you know, wait. But those values and stuff, they're like skateboarding and snowboarding do give you really good values, and the cheesy value is going to really frigging hurt. Yeah. You've got to get back up, otherwise you'll give up and you'll be annoyed. And it definitely gives you. Well, I'm sorry to cut you off. It gives you that sort of failing. Like, you are going to fail the first time you try something, unless you're like, unless you're Turye, or unless you're Mia Brooks. Do you know what I mean? You are going to fucking nail yourself probably. Yeah. But it's from what you take away from that experience that is going to make you hopefully get closer to it the second time. Yeah, and it's going to take a long time. And there's a crew, like we're talking about, a community around you who aren't going to take the piss and laugh at you like they might do on a football pitch, and I'm not saying they will, but in another sport, another arena where there's more rules and all that jazz. So we were sitting watching the Lax Open half-pipe finals. Right, yeah. And, like, my kids are kind of into snowboarding, but they're not really into watching it. Do you know what I mean? We don't sit down and watch videos. But anyway, the other Saturday night, I was like, I'm not in Lax this year, so I'm watching it. Like, I'm not making dinner tonight. I'm fucking watching this. Yeah. So I sort of started off watching it, and then my eldest came and sat with me. And then I think we paused it to have dinner. Then I was like, right. Well, as soon as I finished, I was like, right, I'm going back to it. And then sort of gradually the whole family came and sat with me. Yeah. And we were all sat on the sofa watching the half-pipe finals. And I think there was a bit where, you know, like, one of the competitors went and, like, somebody came down, the other competitor went and hugged them. And my son, Charlie, he was like, why is he congratulating that guy? Yeah. You know, they're from a different country or whatever. And I was like, because they're snowboarders. Yeah. Like, this snowboarder is stoked on what that snowboarder's done. Well, his first that's it. They probably train together, you know, they're mates. Travel together, they're mates outside, like they're just stoked for the whole thing. And everybody, if some crazy shit goes down, everybody's stoked. And that's what it is. There's not like a winner and a loser. No. That's not how it is. And he was really like, oh, that's quite interesting. Yeah, that's different because he plays football and stuff. It's all about, you know, it is about winning. Yeah, whatever everyone says. And I coach football whatever everyone says, it is about winning to a lot of the kids and the parents. But that's a whole nother podcast. But yeah. And I think that's why exactly that analogy. That's why the skateboarding Olympics blew up so much, because a lot of the commentators and other sportsmen couldn't freaking believe that there was like a massive like group like hug orgy at the end because someone had done like a certain trick. And I mean, it is a weird mold, isn't it, when you watch those sports in the Olympics? But then if kids watch it and go, I want a piece of that, because even if I fall on my ass, someone's going to like be stoked for me because I tried. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's why these sports, even though they have changed a lot, they're still flipping brilliant. And it was someone else on one of your, I mean, it is hard, isn't it, for like my kid, Sonny, to watch there and watch the Aussie, what's his name, Scott, to watch him come down the half pipe and do like 12 million spins.
Yeah.
You know, and Sonny to watch it and associate with that. And everyone's talked about that, everyone knows. But like you said, if they associate with the high fives, then that's brilliant. But then watching someone, the side hits and the goofing around, watching someone like Longo or whatever is more inspiring and more applicable, more like inspirational to most people, isn't it? That's the type of snowboarding that
I'd
we're
say
still
so, but
unfortunately,
unfortunately,
trying to do.
Yeah, but I think unfortunately you have to sort of be in snowboarding to see that stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Because really now the only snowboarding you see on TV is competition based.
Definitely,
which is a shame because that doesn't tell the whole story.
But then,
and I've wanged on, you know, like I think winning in snowboarding is doing a season, or you know, even just getting away for a week and just going away with your mates. That's the wins.
Well, and it's the feeling, isn't it? Like you've talked about, the feeling that gives you, that it can give you, and for the rest, for weeks or months, and just the feeling of wanting to do it again for whatever you're looking for out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, just on Mia Brooks, like I think she came to Nelson's cycling event with her parents right from the start in like baggy cycling, you know, with Jenny. I've got a picture of it. She must be like 11 or 10 or 11 with like you and Jeremy Sladen's boy and from the Snowboard Asylum, and always knew she was good, and everyone told me how good she was. I hadn't ridden with her personally, but got to know her a little bit through that. And then watching her riding now to me knowing her then. Yeah. And to me, she looks like the best snowboarder in the world. She looks like she's literally been created by AI to land, like she's not even landed. Yeah. It is incredible to watch.
It does. I mean, she makes it look easy, don't they? I think the X Games commentary were like, she looks like she's sleepwalking.
Yeah. And it's almost too easy because what she's doing is so difficult. You like almost make it look a bit more difficult. But her style, her like technique, and her attitude again, because she's sort of done it her own way. Her mum and dad are absolutely lovely, aren't they? Like, you know, I've sort of got to know them a little bit through Nelson's. Like, they've supported that event, not just because they had to. She used to go off and raise money on her own, and mum and dad, you know, absolutely nothing I've ever asked of them, and just the nicest people. And you can tell that it's rubbed off on her. And sorry, that's a bit of a ramble about me, but her snowboarding is just, that is inspirational. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think she represents like the lineage of UK snowboarding. Yeah, yeah. Which, you know, is a testament to everybody that's
been part of it.
Part of it, I think. And, you know, I don't want to put any weight on her shoulders, but I'm sure she can handle it. But yeah, I think she is what a British snowboarder should look like, I think.
Yeah, for both. Yeah, exactly. Both attitude, and just how frigging good she is. Yeah. She's got, and you don't want to mention the O word, do you, as far as the Olympics, but whatever happens, she'll be a winner, I'm sure. But like, wowzers, to go there with that type of form. I mean, to be riding that hard and that well a few weeks before the Olympics, being able to switch your brain off a bit from that pressure of something you know, most kids have dreamt about the Olympics from when they're like 6, when they first see it. I'm not saying she's that, but yeah, it's pretty phenomenal, isn't it?
I mean, for me, she's up there with like Jeff Rowley or Tom Penny. Do you know what I mean? Like you know, she's not reached that legendary status, but I'm sure she will.
Yeah. What's mad about those people you mentioned, like Jeff Rowley, and I mean, think about it with Stenty and people like that, just the longevity of like just riding that long, but riding that to that high level, but keeping also having the fire burning to keep yourself fit enough. Yeah. And, you know, and I don't know, that's something I try and do. I'm not saying I'm anywhere near that level, but snowboarding and those sports are so important to me that I know on a crappy 3-degree rainy day in January, I have to put the work in. So when I strap in, I don't feel I'm not going to do a scorpion within 3 seconds.
Oh, mate, I've joined a gym last summer. I was like, I need to be in better shape for this. If I'm gonna try and relive some past glories, well, not that I've got any real glories, but like, if I want to snowboard at a standard that I'm happy with, I need to start putting in the work. So yeah, I've been going to the gym and it does make a difference. In December, I definitely felt a difference. It was like, this is good. This is worth the hours of just pretty boring grinding away.
And it is boring. But like you said, then the glory is getting to the bottom of the run and not needing a cardiac machine like CPR, but also just like knowing in your head that you felt happy with how you rode down, because that's the nicest feeling, isn't it? Like, you don't have to ride, because I've stopped that expectation. I think when you get older, you don't try and ride like Terrier every day, and it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But you still know in your head what level you're happy with, and that's where the hours in the gym or whatever you're doing like helps that, because it just makes you feel a bit like, my legs didn't wobble quite as much.
And I think it's just and just putting up, like, I sort of picked up a shoulder injury when I was in teen last year, and then made it worse.
Yeah.
When I went out to Moran's in February. And it's like, injuries are going to get easier to pick up. But if you sort of, give yourself a bit of conditioning, hopefully those injuries are going to stay away for a bit longer.
Totally. I mean, the one thing that drove me through like boring gym hours was knowing that I'd ride with Stenty and Scove and John and all that lot in December.
Yeah.
And not wanting to be hanging on, wanting to be actually enjoying it. And that's fully, because when you're hiking up somewhere with Will or Stent, like back of the Chardonnay and Teen, you go straight up that staircase. You're knackered at the top, but then you're not going to be knackered halfway down, because you're going to end up in big doo-doo. So it's good. All these sports, it keeps you, your bounceability is increased, isn't it? And it keeps the fire burning a bit. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but obviously your life, well, from what I understand, your life changed, and what you do changed after Nelson's tragedy.
Yeah. I mean, it really did, from the sense that, where was I actually? We were living. So after cutting past, because I obviously worked for Snowboards UK, then I moved to Cornwall because I wanted to. I was like, I want to be a surfer.
Okay.
I lived in Australia, and so I was like, I can go and be really good at surfing. Surfing's really hard, but I flipping nerded out on it. Surfed as much as I could.
Yeah.
And I went and lived near Stenty, and Stenty is a really good surfer.
Yeah.
Bucko, Paul Buckland, who does Volcom now, all of that crew in North Devon. I was like, right, I want to come and be. So we moved down there, my wife and I, and we lived there on and off for about 10 years. And that's where I was living and work. And I'd already worked for Factory Media in London, who did onboard digital. So I did onboard digital for a bit. So I'd done quite a few different things, within the snowboarding industry. I mean, onboard digital was nuts, because I worked with Dave Sipnewski, who's the ex-Transworld editor and Burton team. So I met some crazy people in the American scene through him, but that's another story. But I was in Devon. I was obviously seeing Nelson a lot still, because he was absolutely my best friend but he'd spent a bit more time in Morzine, as in he carried on snowboarding, did the Skyrocket film, was doing really well with Helly Hansen, and was really effing good. He absolutely, on his day, was one of the best riders in the UK. And not me saying that, everyone else would say that.
Yeah, totally.
But loads more to him than that, obviously, that I'm sure we'll talk about. But it was when I was in Devon, and I can't remember what I was doing actually for work. I was doing quite a few different things. I just had that call out the blue. I'd had a really wonky surf at Coomsgate in North Devon. My board, I'd been washed on the rocks. My board had been washed on the rocks. I came in I just had a really, and I know this sounds really common, but I had a really like weird, edgy feeling.
Yeah.
I came in and I got the call from the police that night,
Right.
or that like early evening, that Nelson had been found, and it was pretty clear he'd taken his life. And yeah, I mean, things did. It hit all of us like a bus. I was obviously very close to his mum and dad. I was very close to his. I was close to his brother. I'd only seen him recently, and so yeah, it really did. And
I mean, was there not wanting to pry too much? No, I don't really know much.
Ask as much as you want. Yeah.
Well, only just to give the listeners some context. So Nelson Pratt was obviously, Marcus and Nelson. That was, you were, and you've mentioned him enough times, but like, you were almost like a double act. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And tragically, he took his own life.
Yeah.
And there's been lots of kind of good has come out of a terrible situation, which we'll talk about. But I mean, I've just finished reading a book about Nick Drake,
right?
And it's quite in depth, and obviously it talks a lot.
Nelson loved Nick Drake.
Really?
I loved him. And I listened to one of your tracks actually last night, and it gave me goosebumps because Nelson used to. Nelson loved his music way more than me, but Nick Drake, that type of artist.
But I mean, that was quite well documented that, he was obviously struggling and was kind of lost on a path for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And so kind of, it was almost like people felt that was almost inevitable.
His path. Yeah.
And what I've never really known is anyone around Nelson at the time felt that might have been something like, did anyone actually understand he was struggling, or was he just holding on to something himself?
So, as with any of this, obviously it's really complex and there's loads of different sides, and his mum and dad might say something different, his brother might say something different. But I 100% knew he struggled with what you would probably now call like quite severe bouts of anxiety.
Right.
Both from a maybe performance anxiety side, snowboarding, but just like he would have ups and downs.
Yeah.
He was a real thinker, absolutely. There was, and this will have to be a bit careful, but there is family history in his family, and obviously a lot of mental illness there are very, very, very strong genetic links. I think his dad's brother is there's some schizophrenia in the family, there's some clinical depression. So there are certain mental illnesses like that do have genetic links, and Nelson, and he was, the sad thing bit with this, and Nelson and I talked a lot. This was before I got into mental health, obviously, because now I sort of work in it and represent Calm, which we'll talk about. But even then, he was really open with me. He talked. I knew he struggled in different bits, and there were times when I wouldn't see him for a while because he was in Morzine and I was back doing magazines and other stuff. He also had, and this is where it gets he also had a lot of head injuries, like concussions, because this is way before everyone wore helmets. I mean,
no one wore helmets.
No, and I still get absolutely rollocked by people that I don't ride with a helmet.
No, I don't either.
No, and it will probably bite me in the arse one day. Anyway, but he'd had a lot of small concussions, but a couple of really big ones. And a few weeks before, he had a massive concussion from a competition. I think it was a comp or a kicker he'd done, and he had a cerebral drain where you get some of the cerebral fluid. So he'd had to lie down almost for a week, as in like to let it heal, let it repair. This was before Will Smith's film about concussions. It's in the news today about footballers heading.
Yeah. I heard that on the news yesterday,
Yeah, like look at rugby. And there's now evidence to show that can cause suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts, real depression, etc. There was a lady, a partner on the radio yesterday, 5 Live, talking about it. So there were lots, and he had a real wrestle. Again, he won't mind me saying this, or his brother won't mind me saying this. He had a real wrestle between his snowboarding life, like what he was going to do with that, and he was coaching Jenny Jones freestyle wise for the Olympics for Sochi. So he actually had a life after.
He was coaching some of the armed forces as well, wasn't he?
Amy Fuller, Jenny Jones, Jamie Nichols, who went on to ride the Olympics, Jamie Nicholls, still riding, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like,
Killing
what
it
a
still.
talent, what a bloke. Yeah. So Nelson had, on paper, a brilliant life, and he had that transition, but he was really wrestling between snowboarding, a very successful traditional Hampshire farm life.
Yeah.
Like, do I come back? His parents built him a house next door. I mean, they were building it anyway, but they built a house on this land.
Yeah.
It had electric gates. He hated electric gates. Nelson hated everything that
I
wasn't
hate
like
electric gates.
built in Victorian times, and like you could eat cereal with a wooden bowl. We haven't even talked about his food yet. So I tried to make that short. It wasn't, but there were loads and loads of different factors, and for whatever reason, he ran out of patience. And I think the concussion definitely, because it was shortly after his birthday that it happened. It caused Nelson was never aggressive, but before he died, he had a few like angry, like getting really pent up, like really like cross with things. I'd sent him I said, look, I really think you should go and see the GP. I mean, that was our only option back then.
Yeah, of
The
course.
GP flipping gave him an online program to do on a laptop. The only thing Nelson did with a laptop was like ollie over it or like, eat his food off, like eat a current because it was stable. He didn't even know how to frigging open the thing, turn it on. Like he hated it.
Yeah.
So I think he tried to do that, tried to do this online program, and then he was gone. Yeah, like a couple of days after seeing the GP. I mean, I still, I think about it probably every few hours. I know that sounds a bit, but I do.
Yeah.
And I still feel very, very sad that even though I knew he was struggling, I don't think I could have necessarily saved him. I don't feel like, but I wish, like all of us, that we'd gone even deeper. So it's, what was your question? I mean, it's really complex. There were loads of things that collided, but exactly like you said, on paper, he looked like a Roman god. He was one of the best snowboarders in the country. His funeral, he had a helicopter flyby from the army. You couldn't get in the church at he was hands down, I'm going to be grandiose here, he was hands down probably the most liked, most popular, wide-ranging, liked person in the British scene.
Yeah, so just on that, I mean, my wife used to come to a few snowboarding events.
Yeah.
But I think she found sort of everyone's sort of showing offness, which is prevalent in a lot of snowboarders, and certainly at the time, there's a lot of people sponsored and whatever, and everyone, had big characters. And she found that all quite difficult, but she always enjoyed chatting with Nelson.
Yeah.
And for her to be like, actually, she would seek him out at a thing.
Yeah, really.
Because she would get a regular conversation with a nice guy. Do you know what I mean? And I think...
Yeah. Where was that? Was that at lots of different places?
Yeah, the one I remember in particular was possibly one of those AIM Awards.
Right, yeah.
Just something in London. And he always, like, he was always sort of like the genuine person that you could actually have a conversation about other things with, rather than just talking about, like, oh, what do you do this season? Like you could actually talk to him about life and things.
And he was that classic, I mean, I could talk about that for hours, but he was that classic sort of Victorian gent. He was almost in the wrong era, and he was almost in the wrong sport, because he was purely, even though we've talked so strongly about the community, the friends, the people, he purely did it for himself. Like, very different to me. I liked stickers on my board. I liked new jackets. I still like it now. I still like the right kit. Nelson didn't give a funk what he was wearing. He'd go out in a fucking sideways blizzard to learn a backflip. He didn't. It was for him, and he did find competitions, and because of that, he didn't take and like and seek out competitions and seek out that kind of reward from that side. So things like the Ames events and Brits, even though even filming, I hope Danny Wheeler doesn't mind me saying this, but filming Skyrocket, he found that really hard, the pressure, even though he loved the fact he was going to get, and I watched that again, thanks to you, of it being up there, and he gets the closing scene, but he found the pressure hard. And that's why, and so did I, but to different levels. and we would talk about that a lot. But back to your point, it's Lucy, isn't it?
Yeah, Lucy, my wife.
Yeah. So Lucy, at those events, he would have loved chatting to Lucy because that was an escape route for him, as much as it might have been for Lucy.
Yeah,
it was a way of an escape route for him because he was that humble. He was so wildly talented, but he was so deprecating. He was painfully deprecating at times. Like, fucking hell, Nelson, stop talking. And I think in a way that's why we did work quite well. He'd tell me to shut up and knock myself down, but I'd try and bring him up too. Yeah, and he would have loved meeting Lucy as much as maybe Lucy loved that. Yeah. And that would have got, no joke, that would have got Nelson probably through that night, and he wouldn't have driven back in his landy at 2 a.m. being anxious about why he didn't do that or why he didn't speak to whoever. And
yeah, I mean, I would navigate those events by just getting hammered.
Yeah.
and then it's almost like it's other personing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I was pissed. It doesn't matter. Whatever whatever I said or didn't say to people, it doesn't matter because.
Yeah. And it's funny with me thinking about like the Board X story before, that I really wanted to get into those events to almost have the recognition.
Yeah.
But then when I was in them, I was like, fucking hell, hang on a minute. I should have done a bit more work in Sass Bay 3 weeks ago, learning to spin switch properly or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas Nelson didn't need to go into the comps to prove that he was good, because he was just good. But when he was in them, he didn't like it.
Yeah.
But he didn't not like all of them. But I think, but the point of all of that is that he would have absolutely loved meeting Lucy and meeting people who were happy to talk about books.
Yeah.
I mean, books, music, English. Like Nelson was just, and that's why it gives me goosebumps a bit. But like my little boy whenever he sees pictures of, and they know now what happened to him, but my little boy Sonny absolutely loves films and music, again, more than I do. Melly has to do that bit because I'm more like football and skateboard and sports, like Charlie Sports, John O'Verity character. I am almost that. I think that character might have been based on me, but wearing chinos. But Nelson would have just sat down with Sonny now, like, and talked Nick Drake with him and all of those, like Bell and Sebastian, all those things that people remember him for.
Yeah.
And it's really, and he would have been the most amazing dad of wide-ranging human ability. And it's brutally sad. So my life did change after that, and I went into full practical mode. Like, how can I? My way of dealing with it mentally was like, right, I'm going to go and do something about this.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you did cope with that, and then what's come out of it.
Do stop me at any time though, because I can go on about this stuff. So
no, you've got time. It's all good.
Yeah, but I mean, Nelson, that was the time we discovered that, and no one knew. I don't think any of us that suicide was the single biggest killer of young men.
Yeah.
Time it was like 45, I think, under 45. And we were like, holy fuck, like this actually is a thing.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably one of the first biggish ones in sort of action sports that maybe had, and because Nelson was coaching Jenny Jones in the Olympics, the newspapers and the TV picked up on it. So I did quite a bit with Sky, and there was various different, and we were like, holy shit, this is a thing. Like, this is really fucked. This is bad. Like, this is not just Nelson. This is like, it was 12 a day or whatever at the time. We were like, shit. Calm was 5 people. Calm was about the only, I didn't like Samaritans. As in, I was like, Calm suits, like, this is small. This is like cool. They're into music. It's founded by Joy Division. There was a couple of sports people doing stuff for them. I was like,
right,
me and his brother Chris went to see them, and I say it in the 10-year film, so it's a bit, but there was 5 people in a tiny sweaty little office in Southwark, and it was started by this amazing woman called Jane Powell, who was like pretty nuts. She was like a Greenpeace activist, and she was just trying to do anything she could and I was like, look, we're in, like, what can we do? So we set up, and we had this idea to set up Nelson cycling event. a sportive because both of us had got into cycling, like full nerds, like lycra. It was when cycling was becoming vaguely cool, but it wasn't cool, still isn't, but it is. And we were like, yeah, shit, let's do one of them. Because we had the farm, I'd ridden the Tour de Test Valley with Nelson a few years, like went and he beat everyone on this bike with mud guards on and all sorts. Like he just rode 100 miles like on a banana and a chicken sandwich that he didn't even think. So we're like, I was like, and his brother, let's do that. So we on that first year, we convinced 650 people to come and do it, as in paid places.
Yeah.
They were paying a range from 15 quid to 30 quid or whatever. And all the snowboarding crew, through people like Jeremy Sladen, Janine at Vans, who support all these people banging the drum, all the snowboarders, like a load of snowboarders came.
Yeah.
Jenny Jones, like Stenty, all these people came and supported it. When none of them at that point, I mean, Scove had never been near a bike, and Scove came and rode, in double denim. All these people.
Of course he did.
Yeah, and we raised 60 odd grand in the first year.
Wow.
And for Calm at that point, that was the biggest single fundraiser above the London Marathon. And they were like, "This is brilliant," and I was like, "This is brilliant," but I don't know how that happened. But it was great. People knew about it, and so I became a director and trustee, as in they asked me to, like, will you come and help us forge this? And on the board, They already had some amazing ex-MTV, James Scroggs, marketing, Amy from running like very successful, very clever. And I was like this full just cycling, snowboarding weirdo around brilliant people. Yeah. And I've done that for 12 years since. And we did Nelson's event for 10 years. In the end, we had to cap it for 1,000 people a year to come and do it, because it blew everyone's brains, mainly Nelson's mum and dad, and the toilets and the water, and having to empty it in the field, and the toilets were going to break. And one year we had 40 people go to Slough. They weren't supposed to be in Slough because someone had taken signs down. And we ran it for 10 years, and I'd say it raised, in the whole time, we've raised probably nearly $750,000, as in through loads of different stuff. But the snowboarding community, and I know this sounds like a line, but the snowboarding community, Jeremy Sladen, like we talked about, people like Mia Brooks and her family, Jenny Jones, John Bassett, all of these people just came from everywhere back to it. And for me, that was unreal, because I'd been in my bubble. I think we'd all been in bubbles. There were people like Ryan Davis, Josh Wolf, like people who came from Australia. And over that time, people got out of it. I got out of it. It really was an amazing gathering of people Chris Moran had turned up with 10 kids. Ed Lee would turn up. And for me, I will always have a warm, brilliant feeling that we did that. I miss it like an absolute chasm now.
Right.
And we don't run it now because of loads of reasons. Nelson's mum and dad aren't. Nelson's dad's not great in health. Chris Pratt, his brother, has had 2 kids. They're 2 under 4. It's full on the juggle. The money, the cost of running it is quite different now. So just boring, loads of boring. But we will have some reunion in the next couple of years of some description.
Yeah.
Because back to the whole Board story before, I think it's even more important for us now, and it's even more powerful because we're all of an age where we're a bit more open.
Yeah.
And the amount of people who've come up to me and said, actually, this has really helped me. It's helped me personally. It's helped a lot of people. And I am really sad because the last event, we had 150 kids ride. And the kids riding for me had always completely spangled my brain, because I'm like, I'm going to have to put them on the road. Like, that's horrendous.
Yeah.
But Julia Elliott helping, shepherding that, really, as in looking after people. And we had 150 odd kids ride. We did a panel with Matt Barr, Scove, Julia Elliott, Billy Morgan, the Olympic snowboarder, who was wildly talented human being.
Yeah.
And I watched these kids ride on the ride like crazy, crashing into each other. Luckily, everyone came back alive. my boy Sonny was sick in a hedge. He was about the only one. He was like, because he ate too many grapes that my mum gave him. Came back, and then they listened to this panel of Juliet talking about social media pressures, Matt Barr steering it in his wise Gandalf the Wizard way that he does Scope, the brilliant one-liners of wisdom that he... And these kids were like, I was like, this is them listening to mental health. This is them listening to stopping people dropping off the planet who shouldn't. And that's what I do miss, that feeling of having that sort of influence for that small part of time, that not me the influence, but the event having that influence. And it will have had some good, but I wish I was able to keep that going. And I suppose that's why I enjoy going into schools now, and I train young kids. I coach kids football and other sports, and I drop in bits when I can.
I mean, but it must be like, given how, you know, certainly, I mean, I don't know in the last how many years, but certainly mental health, men's mental health is a lot more of a common subject, considering, you know, kind of, say if we went 30 years ago,
oh God, yeah,
no one was talking about it.
You wouldn't even usher it in the deepest, darkest toilet somewhere. No, yeah.
No, and two guys aren't asking how are you doing, or talking, you know,
not
there's none of that.
After a pint. And that's the thing, 12, 13 years ago when Nelson died, it was still pretty archaic. The difference is now, bluntly and really brutally, is that there's a load of awareness and loads of us doing loads of cool stuff, from charities to individuals to sports people, whoever. But the facts, the stats are exactly the same. And if not, they're creeping back up a bit. I mean, right now, it's hitting young women now, but it's still the single biggest killer of men under 50.
Is it?
You're still at 12 a day. Young women aged under 24 have the highest rise in suicide since figures began.
Wow.
So that's like young women, social media pressures, eating disorders, really, not great stuff.
What, I mean, obviously it's more of a common subject. So what isn't connecting with somebody who feels like that, do you think?
I think there's it's a complex answer. I think the services are still, as in like NHS, the classic services are still under huge pressure. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the children's side, the CAMS side,
yeah.
Any ADHD, anxiety, even lower level, you're looking at you could be looking at 2, 3, 4 months.
Yeah.
And you won't even get in there unless someone's tried to suicide or tried to take their life.
Yeah.
So unless you've got the money to jump the hoops and jump into a queue, I think there's just not quick, easy solutions for people, and there isn't for loads of different problems, and that's not. It's just that the actual services and what on offer is still on catch up, and there still just isn't enough.
Yeah.
But there is more, and Calm have just launched an app today which caters, and it's a long time coming, that caters for more of the lower level mental health, sort of anxiety, ADHD, not sleeping well, struggling. And it means that things like our crisis helpline can actually help people that are at crisis and get them the help quickly, rather than, sorry to be blunt, Barbara losing a cat, or like Bob falling over and him ringing the helpline to say that he's a bit down and a bit, the helpline should be for crisis. And during COVID and those things, and after that, it was just swamped by all of the middle ground, and the real crisis people weren't getting through. But so the helpline is now much better, and the strike rate, people are getting through without waiting. It's really helping people a lot quicker. But we're getting, what did I see today? So nearly 350,000 calls a year.
Wow.
and they're answering a call every 58 seconds or something. So it's still in huge demand, and it's still, well, it's about 18 people if you take men out of it. So when I did, the big turning point for Calm was the Project 84 campaign, where we put, because it was 84 people a week, 84 men a week. We put them on the ITV South Bank building.
Yeah.
Nelson was one of those statues. It was a New York American artist who builds them out of sellotape, and we put them up on the side. And you can link to a video on it. It's a really breathtaking. They're right up on the top of the South Bank, breathtaking video. And Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby did a campaign for a week on it, and that was a turning point for Calm and people realizing that suicide was a massive problem.
Yeah.
And it still is. But ITV and our big campaigns have always raised the awareness. Now it's about, back to your point, of bringing the numbers down, of actually people getting the help, critical help when they need it. And that still isn't easy. And the government do still really need to do more. And it comes in and out of trend. It was in Prime Minister's questions last Wednesday, but it needs to be in there all the time. And they actually need to put money into services. Sorry, that was a bit of a...
No, but I'm just thinking it's... it's a devilishly tricky thing to sort of forecast as well, isn't it? Because the swing from somebody being like struggling to actually making that conscious choice to like, I've had enough, and that can go, that decision can go completely unnoticed. And it feels like, from what I know about it, these things aren't big events.
Yeah,
they're just, I'm not doing it anymore, and it's quite, the sort of the conscious decision making of it. It isn't like a big flounce, I've fucking had enough, I can't do this anymore. It's just I'm not doing it anymore, and then very quickly it happens. And it's finding, like, how do you get to somebody at that point?
And you know what? It's a really good point. And even back to Nelson, not even a truck driving through his house, with someone with a banner on it might have stopped him at that point. And you will never ever stop and some people, and you hear everyone say it, he was totally fine. He was a life and soul apart. He was great. I mean, you hear that so much inside and they might have planned it 2 weeks before. Yeah. And actually science shows that they feel better once they've made the decision to do it. You won't stop X number of people doing it.
Yeah.
But what Calm's new shift a bit is, as in we've realised, the government ain't going to do something really fast. The helpline's there, we've got the app there, and back to your analogy of 30 years ago and 12 years, we have to keep changing the culture. And our ambassadors are like me, you, us, the culture. We have to keep banging the drum of changing the culture, making it easier for people to talk, making it actually all right to talk about the word suicide as well.
Yeah.
With kids when it's the right age. I'm not saying you walk into a school at 6 and start telling them, like, because that's, but when science says that's the right time, and I think you're probably talking 14, 15, 13 maybe.
Yeah.
And I've been very careful with schools not to go too early, but making that, because it saying the word suicide doesn't make it more likely for that person to go and do it. It might really go like, whoa, shit, I can actually talk about that word. And 1 in 4, I think it is, or something, have suicide ideation. I mean, there's a whole load of stats around people thinking about it. So actually, they're thinking about it. And this is where you talk to 15-year-olds about mental health, and they literally like just fall asleep in front of you, or they're like that because it's talked about, it's gone too soft.
Yeah.
But if you change the culture around talking about suicide and actually being blunt about it, but having things and services and products to back it up, and that's Calm, and that's other people. That's not just Calm. I'm not selling Calm here. I'm selling maybe we change the culture. Just hopefully we see culture being changed in racism and things like that. It has to be a cultural shift.
Yeah.
But there's it's multifaceted and complex, and it involves people like you letting me ramble about it, but people like Joe Marler, our ambassador, Declan Rice, talk, actually saying, yes, I'm an ambassador, but actually I am going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Arsenal's going to let me talk about it. People actually not just saying mental health, because mental health is like, we're awash with that at the minute, really, and flipping wellness and well-being, and we are, and kids just switch off from it. But maybe in the few years we'll get better at talking about suicide and how we help prevent it, and how there's hope, and how things like snowboarding and skateboarding and other sports and other people have such a important role in that, and we're all in it together. I think at the moment everyone, you can be a few weeks away from a frigging nightmare.
I think so. Especially, it's hard to know without kind of, if you just completely discommunicate yourself from fucking social media and everything, and live in quite a small bubble, you might be all right, because the world is fucking mental, and it only feels like it's getting increasingly mental.
Yeah.
So how do you sort of insulate yourself from that, or do you have to kind of accept that's how it is and sort of steel yourself to just carry on doing the things that you like to do and care about the people that you care about, and just sort of plough forward and try and just put all that to one side?
But isn't it mad that even us at our ripe old, supposedly wisdom age, we're as bad at getting sucked into that world sometimes, as in phones and that sort of online world. So if a kid, and we're aware of what it might do to our brains, our sleep, our like motivation, or whatever. So these kids that are just in this social experiment, especially the ones that have maybe gone through COVID and had to do that to like keep connected, and they are a social and brain experiment. And I think countries, and I'm not pretending to be a philosopher or any, like, I'm not but philosophizer. But you look at countries like Australia going, fuck this, like we're actually going to do something, and cut like. So at some point, that there has to be a point of like, whoa, hang on a minute. The science is like, it is doing, and you look at the news the last week, people are like, shit, this is actually, the science is telling me that this is really fucking kids up a bit. So what are we going to do? So I don't know the answer to that, but it is back to that cheesy word of like educate, like schools educating, role models. Like, who are kids' role models at the minute? Less kids are into skateboarding and snowboarding, seeing people like Mia Brooks and like your thing. Like, who when the schools ask me in, one of the first things they say is these kids, these boys, especially these girls, they don't have any role models. Andrew Tate, and I hate even saying that word, but they're their role. Some of them, they're their role models. I mean, wowzers! That's like, it is nuts.
Yeah, all these things have given platforms to people without any talent, but can shout quite loudly, and I think going back to that kind of people that have worked hard and have a talent, or at least know enough to do the work to get somewhere, that's probably a more positive role model than just somebody who maybe comes from money or whatever, that can make a life look glamorous on social media. I don't know.
And I think even back to what we said before, and what I saw at the skate park with Sonny in Leeds on Sunday, and your thing about your boy watching the Lax Open, that those values and some of that still is still on fire in snowboarding and skateboard. It does still exist. Like that physical feeling you get from it, the physical buzz, the slamming, the getting up, but also the real mental support and power that you get from connections and community and all those buzzwords. But you see that in our world, and again, I think you've re-highlighted a lot of that. Nelson, the really nice upswing from Nelson is that Nelson's tragedy re-highlighted that in the snowboarding. People were like, I needed this.
Yeah.
And I think maybe some of our kids and our people within our little weird world of snowboarding and action sports, maybe they will realise how important that is.
Yeah.
Without just us bearded dads saying, "Oh, it's really important. Like, skateboarding's great," but maybe they'll feel it a bit for themselves. And that's why, back to that chat about the kids watching Scove and those guys and Matt, but then having done a ride, the physical and mental bond of things like the act of snowboarding, and like you get so many different sides from it. It's really powerful. The problem is, you want sports like boxing and running that are just really cheap for people. Like,
accessible.
I went to Ricky Hatton's funeral recently in Manchester, and it was unbelievable seeing all people who came and supported it. But actually, what I came away was like, boxing is so cheap, accessible, and brilliant and cheap.
Yeah.
And I met a boxer called Brian Rose, who was like, runs boxing clubs in Blackpool. He used to train with Ricky Hatton's trainer, and he was like, I was like, this is shit, and he was like, yeah, this is shit. Like, Ricky shit, like, and I was like, what? So Calm have set up with him. So Calm are supporting his clubs, and he's got 30, 40 kids a night coming into box. That is brilliant. It's more accessible than snowboarding, sadly.
Yeah.
But it has such a mental and physical benefit, and I'm stoked that we're going to do more of that. Josie McNamara, from the snowboarding world as well, our little world, she's got a gym in the north here, Hebden Bridge. She's doing the same, like, brilliant, reaching loads of kids, and I'm really proud to support that in a tiny way, because the power of it's huge. But yeah, it's tough. I do feel very sad that the stats haven't changed. Like, that's quite blunt.
Yeah. How do you keep yourself motivated?
Yeah.
When you know that.
How do I?
Yeah.
Is that the thought of scaring myself, being stood in front of 300 kids where only 2 might listen to me, and I reckon maybe only 3 did, and they definitely didn't like any of my jokes. But also, back to our world, people like Jeremy and Shannon and people at the Snowboard Asylum still offering to do things, like, when we did that 35 years where you were DJing, 35 years of snowboarding, that was purely them saying, do you want this night? We'd like to do this night in honor of Nelson. And it's not about the money, it's actually just about keeping, there will have been 10 or 15 people, 20 people who came to that who didn't have a clue who Nelson was, and they went away knowing. So just small things like that, really. But also, for me, it's a bit about what I can do within the younger kids without scaring them off. But,
so how does, for someone listening, maybe a teacher at a school who thinks, oh yeah, maybe we'd like someone from Calm to come in and speak to, how does that happen?
So quite easily, I mean, they could contact Calm direct, as in just email through the website. It's obviously a really good website, it has to be. But what's really cool with schools and things now, because when I used to go and do a talk at a school, or someone from Calm would go and do a talk, we didn't really have anything to give out at the end other than the helpline number and some beer mats, some flyers, some info on the website. Now they've spent the last 2 or 3 years with psychotherapists, with professors, creating something called a care kit. It's an acronym. It's on the website and give you the link. And that is aimed at kids from 15 to kind of 18-ish, 18, 19. And that has all sorts of different, like, materials, online, offline, that can really support kids properly. So when I've done a talk and I get one kid who comes to me in the end and I can tell he's in trouble, at least I've got something to give him, and I've got something for the school to give him. And that's where things like the money goes, and things like the Snowboard Asylum doing, raising money, me, like anything else raising money. And that's really good. So schools or anyone else, there is support there, not just a WhatsApp, not just a helpline. There is like a proper kit. I hope this hasn't turned into me sort of trying to sell.
No. Well, I mean, it would be a shame not to kind of give you the opportunity to promote, given what we've talked about.
Yeah.
To then not put in place some things afterwards would seem like a wasted opportunity.
And even yesterday, so I sat in this exact chair yesterday and did our 3-month or 2-month board meeting from 9 till 1 o'clock, and being old, I had to like do weird stretches to even keep going.
That is a long
Yesterday they launched the app, which has been a long time coming, but they wanted to get it right. And I think I talked about it briefly before, but that is now there.
Yeah.
That like middle ground, 16 onwards, I'd say, 16, 17, and that is there. So again, if someone says, I'm not going to fucking ring a helpline because, or what, but I can at least give them that. And that's got loads, and that's been put together by, again, like therapists, professors, like good brainy people. Yeah. And it looks pretty cool. Calm is weirdly quite a cool brand. Why would a lot of the sportsmen and people and musicians, well, it was started by Joy Division, and it's always been pretty edgy and cool. So it does ring a tune with kids, but they need something to actually tangibly help them, and we do now. So that's good. I feel a bit better about that.
Okay.
I'm still motivated. I am definitely.
I'm glad. I mean, sometimes these things feel like, you can't stop, because who takes over if you do?
And we really felt that with Nelson's, and I still feel it. Like I openly feel really gutted that I feel proud. Like I feel really proud that we ran it for 10 years, but I do feel gutted, even just for like hanging out with people like you and Matt Barr and Jeremy and like all these people, and seeing people like Chris and all the old friends, Emma Rogers, Sonia, all these people who used to come. I won't miss doing dance-offs with Amy Fuller, because that used to break me for like 6 months. I used to try and like compete with her for about 45
You see,
seconds.
she was commentating at the X Games.
Was she?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Full glam mode.
Oh man, she's gone full glam. But she used, again, to her absolute credit, when Nelson died, she was like, right. And every year she's always been like, what can I do? What can I do? Jenny Jones, what can I do? Jenny and Nelson were super close. So Jenny's never been a question, but Jenny's always stood on the front at like 7:43 a.m. opening the event with me with, frothing cyclists trying to get, and just, but those people, Amy and, always been there to ask, always been there to help, but I won't miss having dance-offs with her, much as I think my dancing is really good. It's not quite as gymnastic as she is standing backflips.
I mean, I'd be amazed if it was.
In my head it is. But yeah.
Okay, what have we missed? Have we not covered
anything
loads,
but I've talked for about 4 hours. But I mean, and it's really hard because there's millions of thank yous of people, like the army people. If some of the army people listen to this, the army, because Nelson was coaching the army, back to that 5 helicopter flyby, which I'll never forget. And that was done not illegally, but they shouldn't really have done it. Right. The guy rang me, like Major John, whoever it was, like, right, you have to be in the field at 8:43 a.m. because we're going to do it. And I was like, what? So we all had to like get the day of the funeral.
Yeah.
And they did it, like, because one of the army bases, so they shouldn't really have done it. And it was one of the most like skin tingling moments for his parents and his brother.
Yeah.
And they helped me run that event, John, Sarah, for 10 years. Like without them, no way that event would have happened. Like so there's so many, and then all the volunteers, all the people that, and they're the people I always feel mortified that I don't get as much thanks, as well as the snowboarding community that just supported it from word go. But so, well, sorry if I haven't missed any of those people out, because there definitely will be. I mean, the main thing for me now is that through people like Will and John in the Dragon Lodge and Scove, that my love of, and I don't mean this in a cheesy way, but my love of snowboarding and what it meant to me originally, and listening to John in your podcast say, oh, Marcus was one of the first people I met in Tignes, because that was, meeting Nelson in Tignes was an absolutely life-changing moment for me. Like I pretty much flunked being at some expensive, wanky boarding school, as had Nelson a bit, but not as badly as me. I didn't even do A levels, even though they're on my CV. That's a different story. So I was at a proper like crossroad, and meeting Nelson was an absolute sliding doors, life-changing moment. Not just us getting on as good, but just what happened afterwards of us becoming the Brokeback Mountain. Like, as they're like, we were like inseparable for lots of different reasons. And without meeting him, my life would have I wouldn't be sitting. It sounds such a lie. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. No way. Yeah. Because he pushed me to be a better person, human rider. And I definitely helped him in certain bits. But that moment in teen, and when he walked up the road to move into my little tiny flat, this is no bullshit. My mum from a distance, and I was so close to my mum, obviously, and Nelson, my mum couldn't tell us apart walking up. And she still says that now. Whenever it's like she gets a bit upset. And so that was absolutely life-changing. So to skip forward now, for me being able to, because I didn't go to teen for a long time because it gave me the fucking heebie-jeebies.
Right.
I rode in Morzine, I rode in Saint-Foy, I rode in Le Grave, I rode anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere but teen.
For about 20 years, maybe.
Really?
15 years? I don't know. At least 50. I went back there with Chris Moran and Les Seddon Brown and a few of us, because we're on a trip in Val d'Isere, Val heli skiing. We went back and rode there one day, and I did a load of the old stuff, and I got a massive buzz from riding there again. I was like, oh my God, and all the memories. But it wasn't until I started going back there with my kids and seeing John in December for that week.
Yeah.
Like, John will never know how powerful that's been for me, and just rekindling that bond with John and Will, and getting to know them even more, and Scove, and now Scove is in Harrogate, so I see him quite a bit.
Yeah. And
Stenty and Neil McNair and all of that gang, and me just falling back in love with snowboarding and being able to talk about Nelson with all that has been absolutely massive for me, and for me wanting to be on this planet and do, and keep on sort of getting up every day and wanting to do it. So sorry, that was again a bit of a but that's very true. But it wouldn't have happened without that without Nelson and that meeting.
Well, I mean, I was about to head into the last couple of questions, one of which is, what does snowboarding mean to you? But I think you've kind of answered that in that last piece. Yeah,
and I mean, I like loads of sports, but that is the one, like in teen, that I get the most sort of buzz and self sort of feeling and effort like that. Like, I sort of, God, it sounds so corny, but like I belong in the mountains, and that feeling of doing it back, like in your first season, of like, oh, I just feel so good here. Like, I feel so comfortable here.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel comfortable when you catch a back edge at 20 mile an hour, but I just, and me being able to experience that back through my kids and watch them get into snowboarding and skiing and meet the same people, and those connections, that's what it means to me. I do still get a real buzz out of pushing myself and going fast and still pretending and wanting to be, I still have a sticker on my board and still like as in, and riding with people like Stenty and Neil McNair, like they fully push me, and that's still snowboarding to me. I still compete with myself. I still want to be really good.
Yeah.
I don't want to be shit yet. And I still pretend that I'm better than I am, but I still want to be good. And that, back to your chat of the gym, snowboarding means to me also getting in the gym and doing some weird jumps up and down and people laughing at me. But I don't care, because it's going to make me not fall over a bit less.
And then, so what would you say to somebody who hasn't been snowboarding for a while, or who has never been snowboarding? Why should they get themselves to the mountains? What's it going to give them?
I think for all of the things I've rambled about, and whatever snowboarding might mean to you is obviously different, whether it's family or individual, but even down to the smells and the experience and the feelings of the mountain and that sort of escapism. And the mountains are a bubble, aren't they? But they allow you snowboarding also allows you, like you said before, to ride and do whatever you want, and everyone does see the mountain really differently. And again, it's corny, but that flow, for me, that's when I find my flow state, when I do forget about everything else. Not when I'm chasing my kids down a run and they're crashing through a ski school or something, but when I'm on my own, or whether I'm with Scove or someone, and we're just, everything does go quiet.
Yeah.
And I do find that now in mountain biking. Mountain biking is the same for me. Like, I really love mountain biking because of that same feeling, the balance between pushing yourself and everything going a bit quiet, and that like flow focus. Like, mountain biking is, I love road biking, but I felt a bit like Nelson, you could think about too much whilst you're doing it. You get distracted and then you get run over by someone. Whereas mountain biking and snowboarding, I find I like looking at the mountain. So back to someone else, maybe they find that at whatever level they're at, and I know the mountains are expensive, I know, but they are wonderful places, and they might not be there for everyone for the future, and we need to look after them, and we need to go and experience them whilst they're there. And they are very special places, and the people that are in them as well, back to those values of people that are in, I think they're gold dust, and those people are gold dust. So yeah,
those people are gold dust. Thank you, Marcus, so much for coming and doing that. I really, really do appreciate what is probably a conversation that you've had many times with many people. I'm sure people have asked you some of those questions before, and I know replaying some of those things can't be too fun, but I do think it is a subject that is worth talking about. As you say, like, we need to talk about these things more, and we need to check in with our friends more often, maybe jump on a train and go and see them, and just, make sure everyone's all right around you in your circle. Just do the thing. If there's anything in this episode that you want to know more about, or if you've been triggered by anything, or are struggling yourself, there's going to be some links in the show notes. There's going to be a link to a video about Nelson that Tim Warwood made at the time. And also, just thank you, Marcus, for sharing your story of snowboarding, like from blagging boards off nitro and blagging crystal to kind of set you up out there, to the good work that you do now. What an incredible journey. And I guess when you started out, you probably wouldn't have known or feared that you would be doing what you're doing now, but you are changing lives for many people, and it's appreciated. It's appreciated. So yeah. So in other news, the British snowboarders did well at the Olympics. Hugh Nightingale and Charlotte Banks obviously winning the UK's first ever gold medal on snow. I mean, that is quite remarkable, really. I still think, like when Mia was on the Bombhole podcast, I don't know if you ever listened to that. When she's on that, it is still kind of an oddity, a UK snowboarder. And, they're bringing out all the sort of Harry Potter shit and all that kind of stuff. And you just think, well, actually, we've got world-class athletes, the same as so many places, like New Zealand, like they're killing it. I mean, they have actually got, sort of big mountains, but do you know what I mean? Like, it always used to be the preserve of the USA, and I still think that they've maybe got a bit of a chip about that. But I think our Team GB did an absolute sterling job. Shame Mia and oh man, I keep forgetting the names. When I get to this part of the show, I always forget the names of who to speak about. But anyway, the girls didn't get any medals, but they certainly swung and made their presence felt, and that is the most important thing, because the Olympics is only one event that happens every 4 years, and our talented snowboarders are out there training all year round, doing contests, you know, like Mia winning the X Games. X Games is like the snowboarders event that you want to win, and winning that quite convincingly. I think she's won it twice now. That's impressive, and I don't see why we should be seen as a nation that it's an oddity if we do well, because we've had a consistent run of world-class snowboarders. I was chatting to Doug Foden the other day, and we've had good snowboarders representing since the start, really. And why not? We've got one of the best kind of scenes. We've got one of the sort of biggest, tightest, close-knit family of snowboarding probably in the world, I would say, which is partly why I wanted to make this podcast, is to celebrate that. And yeah, I think we should be exceptionally proud. If you're a snowboarder in this country, you should carry that with aplomb, if that's the right word, because UK snowboarding is fucking cool. So yeah, have that. What other news? I mentioned the Snowboard Asylum at the top. If you're new to this podcast and you don't know about the biggest retailer of snowboards in this country, the Snowboard Asylum, basically they've been helping snowboarders since the very beginning of all time. They're as rooted in the sport as anything. They've supported so many snowboarders to go and kind of live their dreams, and you know, some of them go off and achieve great things, some of them just do some seasons and have the best time. But it's the whole experience has shaped so many people, and they've helped so many people to kind of make their dreams come true. And they've got more knowledge amongst their staff than I think you'd find in any retailer anywhere. You see like the amount of people they take out to spring break to be testing the boards, to get on snow experience of the boards, so that when they're selling you kit, they have actual lived experience of that equipment. And they invest money, and it's cool. And they've actually got a sale on right now, not to be too like salesy about them, but they do look after us here at Thank You Snowboarding, and we appreciate it. And I saw on the Instagram today that they've got their sale starting. So if you need any kit, now would be a great time to be getting in touch with them and going and seeing what they've got and getting the right kit for you. I know I bang on about it all the time, but I've spent probably 95% of my snowboarding life with boots that weren't the right fit for my feet, and foot pain has kind of beleaguered my snowboarding. Like, I've still managed to go snowboarding, but sort of in spite of boots. And it's only been the last couple of years that I've actually had a really, really comfy pair of boots that work really, really well. And I love them, and it's made such a difference. So, and that was going up to the Snowboard Asylum in Covent Garden, trying loads of different pairs on and getting the pair that fitted me the best. Not just someone who's going to give me them for cheap or any of those things. It was trying them on and getting the right ones. And those guys do that every day. They help people find the right fit, and they know exactly kind of what shape boot you'll need for your feet. So do go and give them a shout. Don't do that thing of going in, getting all the advice and then buying it online. That's not the snowboarder's way. That's not the snowboarder's way. That's the skier's way. I'm not casting any shade on skiers. Yeah, in other news, the camp is getting close. I think we're a month away. We're going to be in La Coche, in La Plan, in the Paradis ski. We do have a couple of spots left if you are interested. Oakley are going to be giving us some goodies to be giving away. The Snowboard Asylum are giving us some wax and scrapers. The Reason magazine are giving us some bits and pieces, plus some copies of the Reason magazine. I'm going to be giving away that board that I hand built down at Duke Snowboards. What else? There's going to be some coaching with Owen George, who was a few episodes ago. You go and listen to that and realise that he's one of the nicest people, and in my opinion, has the best turns in snowboarding. And he's going to be coming and coaching everybody, and I'm excited about that because my riding could probably use some tweaking. I've just been making it up all this time. Might be nice to get someone that's really good to have a look at my riding and suggest some ways in which I could make it better. I probably plateaued about 25 years ago and never got past that. There's going to be great food. There is a really nice chalet. It's got a hot tub and a sauna. What else? Duncan Wright from the Reason magazine is going to be there with us. He's going to be documenting everything. Included in the price is a 6-day Paradiski pass, and we are going to cover every inch of that place. The idea is just, it's going to be the people we got booked on all seem awesome. They've all received Thank You Snowboarding t-shirts as a little thank you for booking. And it's just going to be a great cruise of people going snowboarding every day, like big days on the mountain, some coaching. Max from Burton, one of Burton's riders, is going to be with us. He's going to be in charge of all the test boards and step-ons that we're going to have. We're doing a bespoke test centre with Burton, so we're asking our guests what boards they like to ride, what sizes they like to ride, all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to bring boards suited to those people, so there won't be like the full range, but we're kind of narrowing it down to what we think you're going to like. And Max is going to be in charge of that, as well as he is a Basie coach, so he's going to be offering some tips on riding as well, possibly some more freestyle orientated stuff, because he is a rail king. So he's going to be with us all week as well. There's going to be some ex-podcast guests popping in. We are also going to be hopefully recording some content, whether it's chairlift chats or actually full episodes in the chalet as well. So if you're there, you'll be able to participate and ask questions and be part of the podcast. So it's going to be, I'm going to be honest, it's going to be fucking sick. If you haven't been out on snow yet this season, or, you're umming and ahhing, or you're on the fence, it's been snowing an absolute ton. Looks like Le Plan and that end of France has been getting the best of the conditions, and it's just going to be great. It's such a good area. If you've never been there, you don't know what you're missing. If you always go to Morzine, yeah, all right, go to Morzine. But seriously, we left Morzine because we started riding in Le Coche and Le Plan when we had the chalet, and it's fucking awesome, and you won't regret it. It's going to be such a good trip. So there are a couple of spots left if you want to get in touch with me to save one of those for yourselves. It's thankyouSnowboarding@gmail.com. The email address will be in the notes below wherever you're listening to this. I want to send a shout out to Clinton, who sent me a message yesterday. He was in Chester, and he thought he heard that the TSA have got a shop in Chester, so he went in and tried on some boots and didn't quite realise he was being served by the legend that is Steve Bailey. You can go back, he was the Ender guest of last season, and proper bona fide legend of British snowboarding, who works at the Chester branch of the Snowboard Asylum. And Steve's pretty low-key about like his contribution to the sport. But Clinton went upstairs and then got chatting to someone else, and they were like, yeah, do you realise that's Steve Bailey? And he went back down and got a selfie with him, and he sent me a message, which is fucking awesome. That's that sort of thing. All the snowboarders, everybody we've had on the podcast so far, and I'm probably pretty right in saying everyone that we will ever have on the podcast, they're all really nice people. Snowboarding brings out the best in people, and if you meet any of these people through snowboarding, I'm pretty certain they're only ever going to be stoked that you're stoked. So, yeah, that was Clinton's story. Pretty stoked that you sent me that. If you do want to get in touch and tell me stories like that, then it's, again, the same email, thankyouSnowboarding@gmail.com, or find us on Instagram, Thank You Snowboarding Podcast, and you can send me a DM on there. I do post some stuff, cross-post stuff on Facebook, but I don't really look at Facebook. So DMs on Instagram are really better than Facebook, I would say. So yeah, if you want to get in touch, we have got some merch left. We've got some hoodies and some t-shirts. If you want one, give me a shout. We'll do all that business over the email rather than on here. Yeah, snowboarding. Oh man, the camp's only a few weeks away. I can't wait. It's been since beginning of December that I went away, which is, for me, well, compared to last season, seems like an eternity. But yeah, I can't wait. I'm just buzzing. We're going to have Park Coffee. They're going to be, everyone's going to go home with some coffee from Park Coffee, which is Pete Williams, who used to be a Bourg Saint-Maurice local, is a skier, but he's one of those like skier Jim. He's like the closest to a snowboarder a skier can get. And he is a fine coffee roaster in West Sussex, and he is giving us some Thank You Snowboarding blend coffee for the camp. So we're going to be jazzed up on that. So yeah, loads of reasons to come. The only reason not to come is because, well, I don't know. Just why wouldn't you? Just if you like snowboarding and you haven't been yet, or even if you have been yet, I think some of our guests have been out at Jenny's camps as well this season. Just come. It's going to be a great time. There's no reason not to. But anyway, this podcast isn't all about me selling the camp. It's all about the guests and the history. So again, Marcus, thank you so much. There'll be some stuff about Calm and all that sort of stuff in the show notes. If you are struggling with anything, then please do reach out to someone. Even you can reach out to me at thankyouSnowboarding@gmail.com if you want, and I can certainly signpost you to the right people that you need to speak to. Yeah, thank you, Marcus, and thank you all for listening. This is a bit of a long one. As always, back next Thursday, 10 a.m. Thank you, Snowboarding. Peace.